Lila stepped through the large courthouse doors, the sound of her heels echoing in the expansive marble hall. The dim light from the antique chandeliers reflected off her neatly tailored outfit, accentuating the confident demeanor she tried to project. Yet inside, her heart was pounding, as if it might burst out of her chest. Lila was not someone who enjoyed confrontation, but today she had no other choice. The courtroom was packed with people, lawyers, reporters, and curious strangers. Lila quickly spotted them, the Prescott family. Sitting neatly on the opposing side was Ethan, her ex-husband, his hair as polished as it had always been. Beside him sat Victoria Prescott, the powerful woman Lila had once feared and dreaded facing. Victoria's icy demeanor was unchanged, her sharp gaze fixed on Lila with unrelenting intensity. Lila clutched her worn leather bag tightly, inside of which was a letter from Harrison Prescott, the only member of this family who had ever extended a helping hand when she was at her lowest. That letter, along with the memories of Harrison, was the strength that kept Lila standing tall today. She walked slowly toward the seats designated for the parties involved, feeling the weight of every stare following her. Her posture seemed composed, but the hands hidden under her light coat trembled. Lila took her seat, inhaling deeply to steady herself. It all began here. This wasn't a fight over wealth, but a moment for Lila to prove her worth to those who had once deemed her insignificant. They had cast her aside, treating her like a blemish on their prestigious family name. But now she was no longer the weak woman she had been. The gavel banged, pulling everyone back to reality. The hearing on the last will and testament of Mr. Harrison Prescott is now in session. The judge's authoritative voice rang out. Lila glanced around the courtroom, her gaze finally landing on Ethan. He was looking back at her, his expression a mix of surprise and confusion. She curled her lips slightly, not in a smile but as a reminder to herself. Today wasn't about revenge but about justice and fulfilling Harrison's final wishes. The trial had begun, and Lila braced herself for everything that was about to unfold. Welcome to today's story. Let us know which city in the world you're watching from in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any meaningful stories. Now let's continue with the story. Sitting in the courtroom, Lila couldn't stop the flood of memories rushing back, each piece of her past playing out in her mind like a slow-motion film. Lila closed her eyes, letting the distant memories wash over her like fragments of a once vivid dream now faded to shadows. She recalled the first time she met Ethan Prescott, a meeting that felt almost like destiny. At that time, she was just a small-town girl with a heart full of dreams, arriving in the big city with aspirations of becoming an artist. Despite the challenges she faced, her eyes remained bright, filled with hope for the future. And then Ethan appeared, like a ray of light breaking through a gloomy sky. He entered her life with his refined appearance, captivating smile, and a confidence that turned heads wherever he went. To Lila, he wasn't just a man. He was like a prince straight out of a fairy tale, someone she believed could only exist in distant dreams. Lila never thought that someone like Ethan could ever notice her, a simple girl with hands often stained from painting classes and clothes that never quite looked elegant enough. But Ethan not only noticed her, he was drawn to her sincerity, purity, and inner strength. He told her that her world made him feel at peace, a simplicity he had never found amid the grand parties or the perfectly masked people in his life. Their love blossomed quickly, overcoming all differences in status and background. When Ethan knelt to propose to her on a golden afternoon, Lila couldn't hold back tears of joy. She believed she had found the man of her dreams, the one who would love and protect her for the rest of her life. Her heart brimmed with hope and faith that this was the beginning of a beautiful journey. But married life turned out to be far from what Lila had envisioned. Upon entering the Prescott family, she immediately felt out of place in their world, a world where every glance and every word carried judgment, especially from Victoria Prescott, Ethan's mother, who consistently looked at Lila with cold disdain and delivered sharp, cutting remarks. Victoria made no effort to hide her contempt, viewing Lila as unworthy and a stain on the Prescott family name. Lila gradually realized that Ethan's love wasn't strong enough to shield her from the harsh prejudices of his family. In this glittering world, The sincerity that Ethan once admired in her was now regarded as a weakness. The beautiful dreams she had painted for her married life shattered into painful fragments, haunting reminders of a fleeting happiness she had thought would last forever. Lila believed that things would change when she found out she was pregnant. Her heart was filled with joy at the thought of sharing this news with Ethan, a child who would be a bridge, a hope for their future. But Ethan's reaction crushed her heart. "I'm pregnant," Lila said, her voice trembling yet filled with anticipation. Ethan looked at her, not with the joy she had hoped for, but with tension and discomfort etched across his face. "Are you sure?" he asked, his tone barely masking his unease. "Yes," she replied firmly, her hand instinctively protecting her belly. "We're going to be parents, Ethan. This is wonderful news." But he didn't think so. Ethan began avoiding her, spending more time at the office. Their conversations grew shorter and colder. Whenever Lila tried to talk about the baby, Ethan would either evade the topic or change the subject. The breaking point came when Victoria confronted her directly. "Lila, do you think this child is going to save your marriage?" Victoria said with biting disdain. "It will only ruin Ethan's career. You're dragging him down." Lila turned to Ethan, hoping he would stand up for her, but he just stood there silent, avoiding her gaze. "If you truly love Ethan," Victoria continued, "you'll leave. Don't be a burden to him and to this family." In that moment, Lila realized she would never have a place in the Prescott family. It wasn't just Victoria's blatant contempt or the scornful remarks from relatives. It was Ethan's painful silence, the man who should have been her anchor. His silence, when she desperately needed his support, was the most brutal answer of all. She had once believed that their love could overcome anything, but now all she could feel was a chilling emptiness. Ethan didn't just remain silent. He stepped back, leaving her alone to face the insults. Lila didn't just feel abandoned. She felt stripped of her dignity. The day she left, the sky was gray, as if reflecting her sorrow. Cold rain poured down as she walked through the grand gates of the Prescott estate, a place that had once been her dream home, but now stood as a symbol of humiliation. With a small suitcase in hand and her unborn child in her womb, Lila walked away without a single farewell from Ethan, without so much as a glance back from anyone in his family. They felt no regret, even viewing her as a burden they had finally shed. Lila felt as if every step she took was unbearably heavy, not only because of the suitcase in her hand, but also because her heart was weighed down by pain and betrayal. Standing in the rain, tears blended with the cold drops falling from the sky. Lila knew there was no going back. She had no choice but to move forward, to be stronger for the unborn child she carried. Yet even as her determination urged her onward, the emotional wounds inflicted by Ethan and the Prescott family remained etched deeply in her heart, a scar she knew would never fully fade. Now sitting in the courtroom, reality pulled Lila back. She lifted her head and looked toward Ethan. His face was still familiar, but the cold detachment in his eyes reflected the painful past like a mirror. Lila felt a storm of emotions within her, but she refused to let them take control. She sat upright, her gaze steady, as if to affirm that she was no longer the fragile girl she once was. The years of raising her son alone and enduring society's scorn had forged Lila into a strong woman. She no longer needed validation or pity from anyone. Today, Lila wasn't here for revenge. She was here for justice. She would prove to the Prescott family that, despite their belief that she was unworthy, she had overcome everything and stood strong before them. Resilient, determined, and, most importantly, independent of their approval. Harrison had seen her true worth, and today Lila would not let him down. The first days after leaving the Prescott family were the hardest of Lila's life. With no place to turn, no one to rely on, she had to find a way to survive. Not just for herself, but for the child growing inside her. Lila started working at a small diner in a poor neighborhood. The waitressing shifts stretched from early morning until late at night, and even with meager wages, she struggled to save every penny. Her body ached with exhaustion, but each night as she placed her hand on her growing belly, imagining the day her son would be born, she reminded herself, "I can't give up. For him." When Oliver was born, life became even more demanding. Balancing childcare with earning a living was an endless battle. Between long shifts and sleepless nights caring for her baby, Lila hardly had time to breathe. The artistic dreams she had once cherished were set aside. Instead, she began seeking practical ways to improve their lives. During the day, Lila worked at the diner. At night, she attended business classes at an adult education center. There were moments when exhaustion overwhelmed her, and she felt like collapsing. But the thought of building a better future for Oliver was the beacon that kept her going. She made a promise to herself. No matter what happened, she would not give up. Oliver needed her more than ever, and she had to be strong, had to rise above it all. Oliver was the single light in those dark years. Every time she saw his innocent smile, Lila felt that all her struggles were worth it. Despite their financial hardship, she always tried to create joyful and memorable moments for the two of them. Taking Oliver to the park, even for a short walk, was their greatest joy. Lila would often tell him fairy tales, though deep inside she knew her own fairy tale had long since shattered. "You'll grow up to be strong, I promise," Lila whispered to Oliver one night as he drifted to sleep in her arms. Those words weren't just a promise to her son. They were a reminder to herself that she had to stay strong, to protect Oliver and give him a better future. But Lila couldn't always maintain her optimism. On long nights after Oliver had fallen asleep, she often sat alone in their cramped apartment, her mind overwhelmed by unanswered questions. Did Ethan ever think of her? Did the Prescott family regret what they had done? Lila knew asking these questions wouldn't change anything, but the pain remained. Memories of betrayal, Ethan's cold eyes, and Victoria's biting words cut into her heart like knives whenever she reflected on the past. One day, while clearing tables at the diner, Lila overheard two customers talking. One of them mentioned the Prescott family, their wealth, power, and lavish parties. Lila clenched the dish towel in her hand, a lump rising in her throat. She stepped into the kitchen, leaning against a corner wall, breathing heavily as tears threatened to spill. But then she wiped her eyes, reminding herself that she was no longer the woman she used to be. She didn't need to live in their shadow anymore. Gradually, Lila's efforts began to pay off. She graduated from her business program with high honors, opening doors to new opportunities. She started a daytime office job while continuing her waitressing shifts in the evening to make ends meet. Each small step forward, each modest achievement, became a source of motivation for Lila to keep going. Although life remained challenging, she knew she was moving forward, little by little. Oliver, with his natural intelligence and zest for life, became Lila's guiding light. Watching him grow stronger and more joyful each day, she knew that all her hard work was worth it. Oliver wasn't just her pride. He was living proof of her strength, a testament to how she had overcome the impossible to build a new life. Lila didn't forget the past, but she learned not to let it define her. And although the painful memories lingered, they only made her more determined to ensure that Oliver would never endure what she had. Lila's life had been a series of battles against hardship, until one day everything changed when Harrison Prescott, Ethan's grandfather, appeared, bringing with him apologies and an opportunity Lila had never dared to dream of. That afternoon seemed no different from any other at the small diner where Lila worked. She had just finished clearing a table when a man walked in. He wore a long coat, exuding an air of elegance without ostentation. What stood out most was his gaze, a mixture of sternness and calm. "Hello, Miss Lila Bennett," he asked gently as he approached her. Lila froze, startled to hear her name from a stranger's lips. But before she could ask, he introduced himself. "I'm Harrison Prescott, Ethan's grandfather." The words hit her like a sudden blow. Lila felt her whole body stiffen. She didn't know how to react, surprised, angry, or even hurt. "I know my presence is unexpected and perhaps unwelcome," he said, "but I want to tell you that I'm sorry." Lila stood motionless, the dish towel still in her hand, unable to speak. "I'm sorry for how my family treated you," Harrison continued, his tone sincere. "You didn't deserve that, and I feel responsible for what happened." Lila still said nothing, but her gaze softened, the initial shock giving way to a curious wariness. Harrison sat down, offering a gentle smile. "I've been watching you, Lila. The way you've raised Oliver with such strength, the way you've worked hard and pursued your education, it's remarkable. I believe you have far more potential than my family ever realized." When Harrison finished speaking, Lila remained silent, her emotions swirling in a chaotic mix. At first, she felt surprised and guarded. He was a part of the Prescott family, the name that symbolized some of the deepest wounds in her life. His sudden appearance left her unsure of what to expect. Another judgment, or perhaps pity. But then every word he said seemed to reach deep into her heart, stirring old memories and the pain she thought she had buried long ago. When Harrison apologized, his voice warm and sincere, Lila couldn't hide her unease. Her hands clasped tightly together, her heart clenched as his words reminded her of the injustices she had endured. As he went on to praise her resilience and efforts, a strange mix of emotions arose. Gratitude mingled with doubt. Were his words genuine? Or was this merely a belated attempt at compensation she no longer needed? Lila's gaze shifted between wariness and a faint flicker of hope. Harrison's final words about seeing great potential in her brought a sting to her eyes. For the first time in years, someone didn't just see her, but acknowledged all she had overcome. She felt a faint light breaking through the fog of her pain, a reminder that she deserved respect and love. Tears threatened to fall, but she held them back, trying to remain composed. Her heart felt heavy, not just from the old wounds resurfacing, but also from a fragile seed of hope being planted. For the first time in years, she felt as if she wasn't entirely alone on this journey. From that day forward, Harrison began quietly helping Lila. He didn't impose or interfere deeply in her life, but instead offered gentle advice and support when needed. "A strong-willed person like you needs access to better opportunities," he said during a meeting at a cafe near her home. "Let me help you return to school and develop your skills. You've done incredibly well so far, but I believe you can achieve even more." At first, Lila hesitated. She had grown used to handling everything on her own and was reluctant to accept help, especially from a member of the Prescott family. But Harrison's sincerity eventually won her over. "I'm not doing this to atone for my family's mistakes," Harrison said, his gaze firm. "I'm doing this because I believe in you, and I believe that with a little support, you can accomplish great things." Thanks to Harrison's assistance, Lila returned to school, resuming her studies in business with unwavering determination. He didn't just help her financially, but also introduced her to new job opportunities where her talent and perseverance were recognized. Over time, the relationship between Lila and Harrison grew increasingly special. He wasn't just a mentor, but also began to feel like the father figure she had never had. Harrison never judged her or imposed unreasonable expectations, but always listened and supported her with genuine care. Once, when Lila struggled to balance work and school, she called Harrison for advice. "I'm scared I can't do it, Mr. Harrison," she said, her voice breaking. "I want to give it all up and just focus on Oliver. I don't want to fail." Harrison paused for a moment before replying, his voice calm and steady. "Lila, the challenges you're facing are proof of your growth. No one ever said this journey would be easy, but remember, you're not alone. And more importantly, Oliver is watching you every day. You're teaching him that anything can be overcome as long as you don't give up." Harrison's words didn't just ease Lila's worries, they reignited her strength to keep moving forward. Lila gradually realized that Harrison wasn't only helping her build a career, but also helping her heal the deep wounds from her past. He never shied away when she spoke about the pain of being rejected by the Prescott family, always listening with patience and understanding. "Mr. Harrison, I still don't understand," Lila said one day, her eyes filled with sadness. "Why do you believe in me when your entire family didn't?" Harrison smiled and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Because they see your past and your status. But I see the future you can build. Not everyone has the strength you possess, Lila. Use it to prove them wrong." With Harrison's quiet yet impactful support, Lila not only completed her studies but also began building a career in business. Harrison didn't just provide her with opportunities, he helped her regain faith in herself, a confidence she thought she had lost forever. Lila no longer lived just to survive. She began living for a brighter future, not only for herself, but also for Oliver. And she knew that every step she took carried the imprint of Harrison, the man who believed in her when no one else did. A few months later, when Lila received news of Harrison's passing, it felt as though time had stopped. The phone in her hand felt unbearably heavy, and each word from the caller rang clearly in her ears, but failed to fully sink into her mind. She sat motionless on the chair, her eyes fixed on an empty point in space. An inexplicable sorrow filled her heart, a deep sense of loss she hadn't anticipated. Harrison wasn't just the only member of the Prescott family who truly saw her worth. He was the one who extended a helping hand during her darkest times. His death severed a fragile yet meaningful connection between her and the values he represented: kindness, integrity, and faith in goodness. She recalled every word he had spoken, every brief yet profound conversation they had shared. In her mind, Harrison's image appeared vividly, a man with warm eyes and a gentle smile who gave her the confidence to believe she could succeed, that she deserved better. Yet guilt crept into her thoughts. I didn't visit him more often, she thought, her hands clenched tightly. I didn't tell him how much his actions changed my life. Lila broke into tears, but they weren't just tears of grief. They carried gratitude, regret, and an unshakable determination. She silently vowed not to let his legacy fade away and to continue living and working by the values he had trusted and instilled in her. As she gazed out the window, where the faint sunlight of the late afternoon pierced through the gray skies, Lila whispered, "Thank you, Mr. Harrison. I won't let you down." A few days later, Lila received a handwritten letter from Harrison addressed to her. If you followed the story this far, type pizza in the comments section. It helps us know you're a truly special viewer. Don't hesitate. We're always watching and love your interactions. And today in court, Lila stepped into the courtroom on a chilly morning, feeling the tense atmosphere permeating the room. It had been many years since she last saw the Prescott family, but the memories of their contempt and rejection toward her remained vivid. She saw Victoria Prescott, still as haughty as ever, sitting alongside Ethan and other members of the family at the opposing table. Victoria's gaze was icy when she noticed Lila, as though her very presence was an insult. Ethan, seated next to his mother, appeared stunned to recognize Lila. But Lila didn't waver. She walked to her place, gripping tightly the letter from Harrison Prescott, the only person in this family who had ever truly recognized her worth. Harrison's lawyer, Mr. Alexander, stood up and began to read the will. His calm voice resonated in the silent room. According to the wishes of Mr. Harrison Prescott, his personal assets shall be distributed as follows. Curious eyes from the Prescott family turned toward Mr. Alexander. As he continued, his tone grew firm. The majority of the estate, including principal ownership of Prescott Enterprises, shall be transferred to Layla Bennett, the individual Harrison Prescott trusted most to carry out his vision. The room erupted. Victoria shot to her feet, her voice seething with rage. This is absurd. How could he leave everything to her? Who does she think she is? The judge banged the gavel, signaling for order. Mrs. Prescott, if you do not remain silent, I will have you removed from the courtroom. Ethan sat frozen, his eyes locked on Lila. He seemed unable to believe what he had just heard. What did you do to achieve this? Victoria hissed, turning toward Lila with disdain in her voice. How did you deceive my father? Lila calmly stood, her gaze steady as she met Victoria's glare. I didn't deceive anyone. Harrison trusted me because he saw what your family failed to notice, the true value of a person. Ethan spoke up, his voice low but clear. Lila, is this true? Did Grandpa choose you? Lila nodded. Yes, Harrison helped me through the hardest times of my life. He believed I could carry forward the legacy he left behind. Victoria let out a mocking laugh. Ridiculous. A girl who was cast out of our family, running Prescott Enterprises? That will never happen. Lila took a deep breath, keeping her voice calm but resolute. I'm not here to argue with you, Mrs. Victoria. I'm here to fulfill Harrison's wishes. If you wish to dispute this, contact the judge and Harrison's attorney. These are the letters, photographs, and documents prepared by Harrison's lawyer. Each piece of evidence has been verified by third parties and is indisputable. Harrison saw the value in me that none of you ever cared to notice. I didn't come here for revenge or to compete. I came to continue the work he believed in, Lila said, her voice filled with confidence. The judge reviewed the documents and declared, "All evidence has been authenticated. This will is entirely valid." Victoria sank into her chair, her face pale. The other members of the Prescott family sat speechless, except for Ethan. If you enjoyed this story, check out more of our captivating content through the links at the end or in the description. Let's explore more together. When the court recessed, Ethan approached Lila hesitantly. "Lila," he said softly, his voice trembling slightly, "I don't know where to start, but I want to apologize. I was wrong to let you go, to abandon you, to neglect you, and to not stand by your side." Lila looked at him, a familiar pain rising in her chest. "Do you think an apology can erase everything, Ethan? I raised Oliver alone, overcame everything by myself. Where were you when I needed you the most?" Ethan lowered his head, unable to meet her gaze. "I know, and I'll live with this regret for the rest of my life. But if it's possible, I want to see Oliver. I want to be a father to him, even though I don't deserve it." Lila paused for a moment, then replied, "I can't make that decision right now. If you truly want to be Oliver's father, prove it with your actions toward him, not just words." Ethan nodded, his eyes filled with deep remorse. "I will prove it, Lila, I promise." When the trial concluded, Lila was officially recognized as the primary heir of Harrison Prescott. The Prescott family, though visibly displeased, could do nothing to change the outcome. Lila stepped out of the courtroom, her heart a swirl of emotions. She didn't feel victorious, nor did she feel any need to gloat over the Prescott family. Instead, she felt the weight of an enormous responsibility, fulfilling Harrison's vision and building a better future for Oliver. The words of Harrison's letter echoed in her mind. "I write this letter not just to express my admiration, but to convey something important. The future of the Prescott family, as well as the Prescott Corporation, now lies in your hands. I know this is no small responsibility, but I believe you are the only one capable of bringing about the positive change I have always dreamed of. Always remember, the true value of the Prescott Corporation does not lie in numbers or profits, but in how we can use our power to do good. I hope you will lead this company with that vision, transparency, fairness, and humanity. I know you may feel uncertain or anxious about the road ahead, but always trust yourself, because you have proven that nothing is impossible." Now Lila understood that she was no longer just living for herself or for Oliver, but to continue and realize the vision Harrison had entrusted to her. Looking up at the clear blue sky, Lila took a deep breath. She had traveled a long, arduous road to get here, and now she would keep moving forward, stronger than ever. Lila stepped into the headquarters of the Prescott Corporation, a towering skyscraper in the heart of the city. Bathed in the bright morning light, everything about the building exuded power and opulence, a world that had once excluded her, but one she now re-entered as a leader. The first days in her new role were anything but easy. Lila had to face skepticism from the senior leadership team, individuals accustomed to the old ways of running the company, as well as the wary glances of employees who only knew her as the unexpected heir. One morning during a management meeting, a long-serving director spoke up, his tone laced with doubt. "Ms. Bennett, I'm not sure if you have the experience to run a corporation of this magnitude. This isn't something you can learn overnight." Lila smiled, her demeanor calm as she responded, "You're absolutely right. I don't have experience managing a large corporation, but I do have experience overcoming adversity, managing personal finances on a shoestring budget, and building a life from nothing. I learned quickly, and I believe that with the support of everyone here, we can take Prescott Corporation to new heights." Her words, delivered with confidence and clarity, resonated in the room. The skepticism began to wane, replaced by the realization that Lila wasn't just there to take a seat of power. She was there to lead with purpose and vision. She continued presenting her new vision for the company, emphasizing transparency, social responsibility, and prioritizing human values, principles that Harrison had always believed in. "I am not here to change everything just because I have the authority. I am here to work alongside you to ensure that Harrison Prescott's legacy is upheld with the values he instilled in us," she said. Gradually, Lila's confidence and integrity won everyone over. They began to realize that she wasn't there just to hold a position, but genuinely had a plan to reform and grow the company. The first shareholders meeting was a significant test for Lila. The Prescott Corporation was facing criticism for its lack of transparency and environmental issues. Lila knew this was her opportunity to prove her new vision. During the meeting, a major shareholder stood up, his tone challenging. "Ms. Bennett, what you're proposing, greater transparency and reducing profits to invest in social responsibility, will harm our stock value. Do you really think we'll agree to this?" Lila rose, her confident gaze sweeping across the room. "I understand your concerns, but let's look at the long term. A company doesn't survive solely on profit figures, but on the trust of its customers, partners, and the community. If we don't change, we'll be left behind. However, if we innovate, if we become a model of transparency and social responsibility, we won't just protect but enhance our brand value. And when that happens, our stock value will not only stabilize but grow sustainably." She detailed her plan, from investing in environmentally friendly projects and improving employee working conditions to making financial reports more transparent. Finally, the meeting ended with a vote. The results showed that the majority of shareholders supported Lila's plan. As applause filled the room, Lila felt a deep sense of pride, not just because she had overcome the challenge, but because she had proven that Harrison had chosen the right person. Despite her professional success, Lila's personal life still had its complications. Ethan, now filled with regret, repeatedly sought opportunities to meet and talk with her. One evening after finishing work, Lila stepped out of the building to find Ethan waiting for her in the parking lot. He approached her, his voice low but sincere. "Lila, I know you don't want to see me, but I just want to say I'm grateful that you've given me this chance." Lila stopped, looking him straight in the eye. "Ethan, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for Oliver. You want to be his father? Prove it to him. Don't just say it without taking action." Ethan nodded. "I understand, and I'll do everything I can to make up for my mistakes." Although Lila no longer had feelings for Ethan, she didn't want to deny Oliver the opportunity to know his biological father, but she set a clear condition. Ethan had to be patient and genuinely change. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our exciting stories. We have lots of great content coming soon, and you'll be the first to know. A few weeks later, Ethan began to slowly re-enter Oliver's life. He visited the boy on weekends, played soccer with him, and helped Oliver with his homework. From a distance, Lila observed, feeling a slight sense of relief seeing that Ethan was genuinely making an effort. But she remained cautious, always putting her son's best interests first. Lila knew that the road ahead would still hold many challenges, but she no longer felt alone. She had carved out a place for herself in a world that had once rejected her, and she had done it not to prove anything to the Prescott family, but to affirm her own worth. With a clear vision and unwavering determination, Lila began implementing her first reform projects at Prescott Corporation. Her initiatives not only brought financial benefits, but also reshaped the company's image, transforming it into an organization that prioritized social responsibility over mere profit. Standing on the rooftop balcony of the building, gazing out at the city below, Lila smiled. She had come a long way to reach this point, and now she knew she wasn't just building a better future for Oliver, but also creating a legacy that Harrison Prescott would be proud of. Despite holding power and wealth through Prescott Corporation, Lila chose to lead a simple life. She decided to live in a small house in the suburbs, with a yard where Oliver could play freely and fresh air to help him grow strong and healthy. Every morning, Lila prepared breakfast for her son before taking him to school. Each evening, she sat with Oliver, listening to his stories about his day at school, from soccer matches to riddles he had solved. "Mom, I helped Jake with math today," Oliver said one evening, his eyes sparkling with pride. "You're amazing, Oliver," Lila replied, smiling as she ruffled his hair. "But remember, we help others not just because we're good at something, but because it's the right thing to do." Lila wasn't just teaching Oliver academic lessons. She was instilling in him values of kindness and honesty. The lessons Harrison had once passed down to her now became her guiding principles in raising her son. Although she received support from Prescott Corporation, Lila never let Oliver get swept up in the glamour of that world. She wanted her son to understand that a person's worth wasn't measured by wealth or status, but by how they treated others. Lila knew the wounds of the past would always be a part of her, but they no longer defined her. Instead of letting the pain overshadow her present, she learned to turn it into motivation to move forward. The memories of the day she left the Prescott family, the tears and the heartache, were now just distant echoes. She opened the box containing Harrison's letters, and one of them read, "Lila, you are a testament to the values I hold dear: integrity, resilience, and a compassionate heart. Always believe in yourself, because you are much stronger than you think." Those words became Lila's greatest source of encouragement during difficult days. They reminded her that she wasn't just living for herself, but also carrying forward Harrison's legacy, a legacy that went beyond wealth. Lila continued to lead Prescott Corporation, spearheading new initiatives such as scholarship programs for underprivileged children and environmental protection projects. She became a role model not only for Oliver, but also for hundreds of employees within the company. Lila never forgot Harrison, the man who had believed in her when no one else did. She passed on his values to Oliver, teaching him that no matter the circumstances, integrity, resilience, and compassion were the most important qualities to uphold. With Oliver by her side, Lila wasn't just surviving, she was truly living with purpose. She was no longer the woman broken by her past, but a strong mother, a dedicated leader, and, above all, someone who never gave up on what she believed in. "We'll always move forward, Oliver," she whispered in the quiet of the night, her eyes full of hope, "because the future is ours to create." Thank you for following the story to the end. Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to rate the story from 0 to 10. We're excited to read your opinions. Also, don't forget to like, share this story with your friends, and subscribe to